The New York City Football Club scored their first goal of 2024, but still no points through 3 matches. We were at training today, and we are live on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And when I say we were at training, it was Roberto Abramowitz right there, myself, Glenn Crooks, part of the radio broadcast team for New York City FC. We were at home for the first time in match 3 of the season against Portland. And boy, Roberto, things looked really good in the first half. And boy, Roberto, they really collapsed at the tail end of the second half.
It was a tale of 2 halves. Really, and it's a shame, right, that they weren't able to finish the job. See, when you did your opening right now, I didn't hear your opening, before we started because I just barely signed on. But I would have suggested to you that it would have been New York City hit the back of the net for the first time, but did not achieve their first goal, which was to win. See, it would have been a nice little open there. See, I would have done that for you, but I got here late. It's my fault.
We need to. We're live, Roberto.
We're live. I'm trying to retweet this, but I'm trying to find it.
Well, so am I. So I want you to.
This is very professional. I want you to know.
Yeah, you need to vamp a little bit, and then I'll retweet too. And I don't see it to retweet, but we've got to get this out there. So say something.
Yes, absolutely, because we want people to see this. So all of you who have tuned in right now, please retweet this for us. Yeah. For some reason, I can't seem to find it, and I normally have this this up.
Well, I'm just going to have to retweet the initial announcement. I don't.
Which I just did.
Retweet. So where do we do that? Why wouldn't we see it?
I don't know. Oh wait, hold on. I found it. I'll send it to you. It's, by the way, it is number 34.
Number 34 that we're on. All right. So proof that we're live is that we're vamping here to make sure that we get this out to as many folks as possible. If we're going to replay this thing, so it's not live.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this at 8:00 tonight on a Thursday, it's
still
not live.
good.
If you're listening to it tomorrow, Friday, it's not live. Saturday morning, it's not live. So I don't know if I were tagged, wouldn't I see?
I sent it to you. Yeah, they didn't tag us. So
are you
sent
tagging
it to
me?
you.
Are you tagging me?
Yeah, no, I have already just sent it to you on your text, on iMessage.
Why did you put it on text? Why didn't you just tag me?
Because it was just easier to just send it out, which I've already done. And then I've done it on Facebook already, too.
All right. Well, I'm not even going to go that route.
Come on, Glenn. Catch up.
Okay. I'm now up to speed. So here we go. Let's get to the crux of this, or the crooks of it.
People are tuning in the meantime, which is all fine.
That's true.
So everybody should just.
So we were at training today, and it was it was one I think we first of all, it was a beautiful day in Orangeburg, a beautiful day in the metro area, and certainly when I've said this before, Roberto, we've been this is our 10th year. We've been there through all the different seasons, and you know that we've been to training sessions sometimes where you could feel the tension, you could understand that. And because there's been adversity along the way in those 10 years, right? And there have been times where the feeling and the mood were not particularly good, and you can sense it. You know it when you're there, and I'll speak for myself. But today, on a Thursday, they worked very hard, and it was lively. It was I thought, effective, and a lot of noise. It just looked like but also professional, and had that angry feel to it also. So despite what's happened in these first 3 games, and we said before the Portland game, in my words with Nick Cushing, he said we're not in a crisis situation. That was after 2 games. He's certainly not saying after 3 that the team is either, and we'll get to some Nick comments here in a little bit. But it was difficult to take, and then I want your take, because again, the credo in preseason was you're up 1-0, get the second and third goal. If you don't, continue to push for that and don't sit back, because in MLS, when you try to sit back for a half hour or more, which is definitely seemed to be the case against Portland, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
Hard.
There's a history of it not working, and you have to continue to push forward, and that didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. And, you look at the lineup changes that he made, and the lineup changes suggest that, he tried to protect the lead. And maybe it was because he thought that was the best. Obviously, he thought that was the best option possible. But when you look at the lineup changes that he made, so Hack came in the 67th minute. Fernandez came in the 68th. Gray came in the 79th, and Mijatovic also came in the 79th. So those were the 4 lineup changes that he made. And Hack is, obviously there to defend. But the other ones didn't seem, obviously not that defensive when you put Mijatovic in there, right? And it's a like for like, and this is the first time that he's put Bijakovic in for Bakrar, and he did that. And then Fernandez came in the 68th minute, which took out Wolf. So, it was still supposed to be offensive, but somehow it didn't turn out to be. It didn't turn out to be that, right? And you can make the case, obviously, that Hack is definitely a defensive move, but give credit to Portland to have pushed the envelope here and going for it, and again finding a way to get it done.
Well, since you were on the midfield, and Shane, our producer today, Shane, we're going to skip the first 2 clips. We're going to go to the midfield clip, because you brought it up, and it was Justin Hack coming in just a little past the hour mark. And this is from the post-game presser. And it was obvious that he was not pleased with the duo of Keaton Parks and Andres Pereira in terms of what was necessary to contain what was going on with Portland. Here's Nick post-game regarding the midfield.
Hence enough in those moments, especially when the ball's coming into the midfield with Keaton Parks and Andres Pereira. We've got to be, that's why we put Justin Hack in, to get more competition, get more competitive in the middle of the field, because I actually don't think the game was overly tactical. I think when we pushed them back and put them under pressure, they kicked the ball long. But when we sat and we weren't aggressive and we were a little bit passive, they play through us. And we're not at our best when we do that. You can see it in the first or the second half. We're not a team that plays passive and waits and plays on counter-attack. We don't do that very well.
So we don't do that very well, so we don't want to do it. And that's the befuddling part of half number 2 against Portland. I did talk to Nick about the sub, and here's what he said to me today. So that was post-game. He said, we wanted to try to overload the midfield to go to a 4-3-3 or get on the ball and be more of a 4-3-3 when we have the ball. And also the ability to stop Chara and Paredes from dictating the game, which is one of the things that was happening. So it was really twofold. And then it didn't work because they still spent too much time without the ball. It gave more space to Anthony and Evander. And those were the 2 goal scorers. So the substitute did not work to the level of why it was made. And, they got the 2 late goals, 85th minute, 7th minute of stoppage time to win it. Also, so Nick talked post-game, and this is one I've really leaned on, and I'm not sure how much I've gotten into it with you, Roberto, is the leadership factor. And I don't mean off the field. I mean on the field, taking control of these situations when it's getting a little out of hand. Every game, almost every game of soccer that you play or coach in your life has moments. And it's how you deal with those moments that really reflects the character of a team. And it also reflects the leadership, okay? So post-game, Nick referred to leadership in terms of how it didn't maintain that attacking mentality, that strong mentality in the second half. Listen here.
Twofold, I think, is number one is we have to continue to develop the new and the younger talent that we have to understand the moments and how to play in them and how to absorb the pressure and how to consistently put intensity into the game. That's the first thing. The likes of Mijatovic and Fernandez and these type of guys. Real talented potential players that are going to be incredible for the future. The other side is demand the leadership from the likes of Keaton Parks, Thiago Martins, Burke, Risa, Andres Pereira, these guys that have been in the league, that understand this. At halftime, Portland aren't going to come out and just play through the 45 minutes. It's 1-0. They're in a game. We have to show the leadership to rip back the control of the game and move forwards. That's been our real unique characteristic over our championship years. That even when we're under pressure here, we go and get the second goal and we go on the front foot. And we had moments today. Not enough of them.
Pointing right towards leadership.
Right. And this is one of the things, right? This is something that is come over from last year, right? And this is where Maxi Morales has probably missed the most, right? And as much as he does on the field, it's the way that he conducts the rest of the orchestra that really helps. So, other people have to stand up and have to, take charge, and I would expect Thiago Martins especially to be one of those guys. He seems to be, the leader most of the time, and he wears a captain's armband for most of the games. So you expect him to do that, but you also should have, everybody else who's in a leadership position, right? And he mentioned the names. I don't need to mention them anymore. That have to do the same thing too.
In my interview with him today, I brought this up. This was my lead. Here's what I did with him, Roberto. I said, I asked him, there were three things from the presser that I wanted to talk to him about. We reviewed one, the midfield. But the one at the top to me was leadership. So he talked about that post game, and then I brought it up today, and I brought it up, and he describes he's got a leadership council, and then I'll let him take it. This is a fairly lengthy cut because I ask an additional question because I'm really seeking the response to why was the leadership or who's going to make it happen in the second half of that Portland game. It's never really answered, but here's what we said, starting off with the Leadership Council, which includes Luis Barraza, who doesn't play. I thought that was interesting. A leadership group, and it included Luis Barraza, which is a guy that's not playing, but still part of your council, if you want to call it. Can you tell us who's on that and what kind of maybe discussions there were this week?
Yeah, I think it starts, obviously, with myself. It then starts with Thiago Martins, who wears our captain's armband, and then we have some real, regulars from years within the club, whether it be James Sands, Keaton Parks, Luis Barraza, guys that, have been here a long time and have a real affinity with who we are as a team on and off the pitch. And then you're looking at real character and real presence within the locker room, and that comes with Andres Pereira, that comes with Burke Risa. Maxi Morales is in it but is in a difficult situation at the moment because of the amount of rehab he's doing, the availability of having him in the meetings. But I think it's a sliding scale as well. We've had Thales Magno, Santi Rodriguez in it. Hannes Wolf is growing within his leadership. So it's not a fixed group of people that almost counsel the team. It's about who is the real presence within the group in the moment.
And this group meets regularly with you? Is that how you have it set up?
Yeah, this is they meet regularly as a group together without me because there has to be a real presence and a real management of the locker room within it. I'm a real believer in that. But also, we meet regularly with myself just to discuss whatever issues we may have, whatever moments, good and bad, we may have, whatever areas of development that we need. It's a regular occurrence. I'm a real believer in the success of the team is executed by the leadership.
And just one final thing about the second half. Were you disappointed, though, with the level of leadership you needed to maybe push it along? I mean, what exactly are you looking for there? I mean, it could be a single player getting into the face of another player. There are different ways maybe to manipulate that.
Yeah, I think you can show leadership and you can show character in many ways. I think for me, the biggest part is we have to spend more time on the ball. I think we're really lucky with our two central defenders that they are real ball players. They're almost midfield players in the back with the ball. And then when you have a midfield of, Parks and Pereira, and then we put Hack in, who is a good ball player, we have to have longer periods of possession that swing the momentum back to us. And then once we have the ball, we can talk about how we progress it and how we create goal chances from it. But we're a team that is at our best when we have the majority of the ball.
And that was not the case against Portland. What were the final possession stats? It was like 61-39, something like that.
Well,
right?
I'll give it to you this way, okay? Like, I don't really believe in possession stats, but,
Well,
for this case, I'll use it. No. For this case, I'll use it because it's important. All right. So in the first half, it was 53-47 for Portland, but the expected goals, this is where it becomes key, was 116 for New York and 0.18 for Portland. Now, when you go to the second half, it was 65% possession for the Timbers, and they had a 0.72 expected goals with 5 shots. New York City had a 0.16 with 2 shots. So, I mean, they had the ball 276 passes versus 138 in the second half. And New York City committed 16 fouls to 6. So, I mean, they were just under pressure the entire second half, and they couldn't get it done.
Sometimes I do not know how to calculate expected goals. So if this comes across as naive, so be it. Monsef Bakrar walked in on goal in the second half twice on the left side with good opportunities. And you're telling me the expected goals was 0.16? Bah humbug, baloney. And the first one was really unfortunate. I mean, and what we learned is that Monsef Bakrar is not at all comfortable shooting with his left because he brought it to his right, the first one I'm talking about, and then just hit one right into the chest with no pace. Crepo, forgetting his name, good goalkeeper. Then the second one I watched a lot of times, and he could have carried that deeper and gotten closer, and I think he was just a little over anxious. So your striker, your goal scorer right now is at a confidence level that I don't know. You can build it in training, but until you start filling up the back of the net in a game, he's on for his career 1 goal for a little over 4 matches in his career.
25%
one goal every
rate.
A little over 4 matches, and
so,
until
we
that.
Gotta be, I just want to be, it would be remiss if we didn't say that he did score a goal that was called offside. Now, I didn't get a chance to see the replay on it, and which is disappointing because I was looking for it and I couldn't see the replay to see where the offside was. But obviously, the linesman, was on it, and VAR seconded it. So, there's not much you can say on it unless, it was really an egregious error. But I think we would have heard about it today if it was.
The one thing we could say is Greg Barkey was on VAR, and he's probably the number one guy. If you had to pick a guy that you'd want doing the VAR on your game with replacement officials, it would be Greg Barkey. By the way, one of the referees, one of the PSRA referees, told me less than 24 hours ago, no progress. So that's the good news from the negotiations between pro referees and the regular guys. But we carry on. It'll be the replacements for another weekend.
I want to go back to something that you said right at the beginning, right on the top, about the feeling at the game or the feeling at practice today. And you did get that feeling, right, that if something was imminent, right? You didn't get that feeling. You saw that the team was, as you said, professional but loose. I saw Andres Jason and Julian Fernandez trying, to score goals like in an empty small net. like from about 40 yards away, trying to curl it with their left leg. It was really fun to watch. And Jason hit the post twice, which I think was pretty incredible from that distance to actually hit the post twice. And
especially since he's well, I guess he's 2-footed. He's a 2-footed player. But Julian Fernandez is all left. So
it's all left. Yeah. And Julian kept on putting it a little bit short, but Jason was like on the post. So and I thought Jason, by the way, I thought he had a pretty decent game for New York City. And I'd like to see him start again. I think that of all the guys who have started so far, he's the one who's done the best. And it would be very good for me because I actually interviewed him for my pregame show. So it would make me look good. So I would want him to start again.
Well, he's in the mix, and if he's not starting a game, there's a decent chance that he'll be the first winger off the bench. That's the level he's accomplished through things he's done in training, and also, how he played at the end of last year. And so he's been someone that's really that has really come on. But what about when are we going to see Ojeda? I mean, really perform. When are we going to see Mijatovic? Now, Michael Anderer, who's also at training today and does the Blue City, do I have that right? Blue City podcast.
Blue City Radio. Yes.
Yeah, Blue City Radio.
Follow them on Twitter.
He talked to Mijatovic, who said he's only about 60 to 70%, fit to play. So, he's got a ways to go. He's not injured. He's still working on his fitness. So if that's true and that's the way the club feels and the staff feels, then it's doubtful he would start a game yet. But the other thing I asked Nick in my pregame on the radio, which will air at 7:15 along with Roberto's on the New York City FC network, was, is there a dilemma coming up if Bakrar, continues to fail to put the ball in the back of the net? I mean, he's the striker, and you're not scoring many goals. Is there going to be a dilemma along the way as to and they've brought in Mijatovic to score goals. And Nick has said that a couple of times clearly that, we brought this guy in to play and score. So in order to score goals, you got to play more minutes than he has been, and he'll work his way towards that, I suppose. But is that a dilemma? Do you play them both together? I don't think that's the best way that this team can look, because then you have to look at the people behind, like where do you put Hannes Wolf, Sandy Rodriguez, Julian Fernandez, Ojeda, Malachi Jones.
Don't forget about him.
Who's that?
Alonso Martinez.
Andres Jason. So, there's that's where your depth is. So are you going to remove one of them in place of Mijatovic just to get him and Bakrar playing together? So it's I use the word dilemma, and it's not a dilemma yet if Mijatovic can't start, but along the way it's going to be a pretty important decision.
Oh, for sure. And the thing is that who's going to wind up making that decision, right? Who's going to wind up making that decision is really Bakrar. And how he's going to make that decision is by his play. That's how he's going to make the decision. If he can't improve on one goal every 4+ games, then he's going to make the decision for Nick, because there's competition now, where last year there wasn't. And so now you've got to be able to score. This is what you've got to do. You've got to score. And that's what he's paid for.
I saw a note with Columbus, defending MLS Cup champions. And I saw it because Josh Williams, who was on the very first team with New York City FC in 2015, played just one season. But he's a Columbus, Ohio native, and he played there most of his career. And they're having a ceremony for him this weekend. But I was reading more of the notes, and I wasn't aware. Columbus has scored in 19 consecutive games, Roberto, all competitions, with 38 goals in those 19 games. That's more goals than New York City scored all of last season. And so that's, but only 11 losses because you compare it to the previous 2 seasons, including the MLS Cup year, that was 11 losses. A lot of this, I've talked about leadership in these moments, and I still believe that is the most important function of this team to move forward. I really do. But the lack of goal scoring has been just so detrimental. And, it makes sense. You got to score goals to win games in soccer, but to the level that they've been unable to to find that second and third goal in particular. That's what's really killed them.
For sure. It affects everything, because if you look at the back, okay, you can make an argument that the back hasn't played poorly. Yes, they've allowed some goals here and there, and there's been individual errors for sure, but it's so magnified by the fact that you're not scoring. So if you're up 3-1, okay, or if you're up 3-1, let's say in St. Louis, and they come down that left wing and they score on the near post, you go, oh well, it was a bad goal, shouldn't have allowed a goal in the near post, but they won 3-2. But no, it's killed the game. It killed the game. And so every one of these goals that they're receiving is magnified so much. And so there's so much pressure on the defense not to commit a mistake. And then you wonder, are they overthinking, right? Are they thinking about things instead of reacting, instead of playing naturally? Because there's got to be this feeling of, oh my God, here it comes again. And they've got to break out of that. They absolutely have to break out of that, where they have a positive mentality that, hey, we got this. We're going to score a second goal. We're going to put this game away, and then we're going to shut it down, and we're not going to let them do anything.
Well, let's play one more post-game clip from Nick, which kind of refers to this. But it's someone asked him about the supporters. There were about 25,000 at Yankee Stadium, which was tremendous. The conditions were pretty poor. It rained heavily throughout the match. It got heavier as the match progressed. But again, it was about this differentiation of the first half and the second half. Here's Nick.
We hate the atmosphere ourselves. Our fans are a special group of fans, and we know that when we play on the front foot and we play with intensity, that they're behind us, and we hear them, and it almost goes hand in glove together. You've seen that in the first half. We put the second and third goal in the first half, and everyone enjoys the whole 90 minutes. We go flat and we go passive and we sit off, which is not us and is definitely not dictated by me, is when the atmosphere starts to go a little bit and people want to see us on the front foot. It's not us. It's not our identity. So amazing experience again to be in front of our fans, in front of our special fans for the first 45 minutes, but we have to give them something to cheer about for 90 minutes. We know that. We're realistic. I'm a realist.
I think the thing I took away from that, not dictated by me. So it's not the way he wants to go about it. And to me, then you go back to, well, what are the players doing about it that are on the field? Leadership. So I'm not going to harp on it any longer other than what I observe. And, we can't hear what's going on the pitch on game day. We go to one training session a day. We know, and we found out from a week. Sorry. And we found out from Nick today that there is a leadership group, which is sometimes rotates and is flexible, that meets on their own and with Nick so that he can identify any problems. So it seems like things are being taken care of behind the scenes, but there's more to it than that. There has to be a comfort level. You talk about, needing to not worry about whether they're going to score a goal at the other end and playing a little differently at the back. But you have to have a comfort level to talk to your teammates in a demanding way. I can't say definitively that they don't, but that's the way you solve issues. You get into somebody, they respect you and listen to you. They might bark at you a little bit at the moment. That's the way it is, man. That's the way it is.
We saw it last year. I think it was last year when Santi and Maxi got into it, and they got into a heated on the field, a very heated shouting match, and it was on the road, and then we saw them on the plane, and they were fine because they're professionals. And what I mean by that is that, and you've talked about this ad nauseum, and I think it's a great, great thing. You don't take things personally. Sometimes you get mad, sometimes you're passionate, and you say things. Nick was passionate, and he said things, right? He said things post-game that made us, open our eyes. It was like, whoa, that was pretty severe, a couple of things that he said. And then today, he spoke about how they got together Monday and Tuesday to talk about all the things that had transpired, and I presume all the things that were said, to make sense of it all and to go forward with all of that. And, today it looked like a really good, lively, training session that hopefully, for New York City fans and for the players and the coach and everybody else, translates into a victory against a much better Toronto team than we've seen in the last couple of years.
Roberto, these are the words that every team, the players and coaches, if you trust each other and there's a bond, and and I think you could see in preseason, the group, they like each other. I don't think there's any question of that. But you should be able to talk to somebody in a firm manner. You should be able to make a declarative statement in the heat of the game, and you use these words: mean no offense, take no offense. I learned that phrase about midway through my collegiate coaching career, and I forced my teams to anytime there was a little scuffle or something, mean no offense, take no offense. And that means from me to the player, because I'm trying to do what's best for you and what's best for the team, mean no offense, take no offense. And I think we need to see, and I thought we saw a controlled anger in that first half. I really did. I thought that team they were playing a little pissed off. They really were. And in a good way, and getting in, there was controlled anger. And then the second half, it became more composed and less angry. I mean, there's got to be a time where you just have to let loose and do it, though, in a controlled manner, because you don't want red cards. You don't want to hurt the opponent. You don't want to, but mean no offense, take no offense. All right. So
I also want to say something that I think it's really important. I don't want to take any credit away from Portland, because, they played a really good game. And credit to Phil Neville to have his team prepared. And they still haven't lost. They've got 2 victories and a tie in 3 games. They won and they tied their first 2 games at home. This is their first game on the road. It's really weird how Portland has played in Yankee Stadium 4 times, and they've never lost. This is the first time that New York City's actually scored a goal against them, right? In 8 Yankee Stadium. That's just so strange.
Yeah, it is. Well, the other games were all 1-0, which is a familiar scoreline.
So it was nice for New York City to get ahead, but they still weren't able to hold the lead, which is, a shame. And by the way, that goal by Evander that won the game, that's a special play. That doesn't happen very well. He can try that maybe one, and he'll maybe make 1 out of 20. Of turning around the way he did and putting that ball in the far net, on the side netting on the far side. That was just such a spectacular shot. Give him credit. I'm not making excuses for New York City or anything. I'm just saying it was a great, great play. And they've got players who can do stuff like that. So credit to Evander.
No, he's a good player, but he had time to tee it up. Nothing was denied, and there were 3 players in the area. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, he did. Yes, they were.
How about this though? With Portland, they scored 4 goals in their opener against Colorado, right? They did it on three shots on target because they had an own goal.
Yeah.
So they win 4-1. 3 shots on target against New York City FC, 2 goals. They have been efficient. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
And that's why their expected goals for the season is so low, because they've just kind of pulled it out, and but Anthony and Evander, who scored their goals against New York City, those boys can play.
Yes, they can, and they've got 7 points, and they're leading the West.
Yeah, as Moreno on the other side too. Now, what New York City is up against, Roberto, against Toronto, and let's be clear, it's far from the Toronto game team we saw at the end of last year. I think it was Red Bull Arena, 3-0. There's only 1 player that was on the field in that game that will play against New York City on Saturday, and that's Jonathan Osorio. But
that's crazy.
The new coach, John Herdman, and then we've heard all about Lorenzo Insigne and Bernardeschi and the problems that the Italians were causing with Toronto last year, the big personalities on the big money. Well, it appears to be, at least early on, a love affair between Lorenzo Insigne and his coach, John Herdman. And that's big news. It was kind of the overriding news of that game where Toronto beat Charlotte 1-0 on this late goal by Insigne. So I heard Herdman on an interview with Tony Meola and Brian Dunseth on Sirius XM-FC yesterday. I knew it was coming, and I paid special attention to it. And I thought his comments surrounding him and Insigne and the team were certainly noteworthy coming into this New York City game. Here it is.
So I was just lucky it was him that jumped in my arms, because anyone else, I'm like 5'6", would have killed us. He's probably the only one, and he still nearly took us down. No, it was a class moment, like a really class moment for me and for the fans, because he's genuinely excited again. I mean, he carries a lot of pressure. He was never really healthy last year. He knows the weight is on his shoulders, but he knows that we're doing everything we can to put him in those little moments where he can bring his brilliance. And there might only be 1, 2, 3 of those moments a game, but we've made a commitment tactically to create those moments with the players we put around him.
And I probably should have led in better with that one, because he scored the goal, sprinted to the sideline, and leapt into the arms of the new head coach, John Herdman. Hence the happy player. Wow. It was really, I thought it was really it was a moment, Roberto. That's quite a moment.
It was a sensational goal, and he's got 2 of them, and both of them have been pretty good. But that one was absolutely special, and a rocket from outside the box, and it found the corner. That's just really a special goal for him. But that's why you bring in that sort of player, because he can deliver that sort of moment, which he didn't as much in the past as he's done this year. And he seems to be a much happier player. I mean, I didn't even expect him to be back this year. And not only is he back, I mean, he's got 2 sensational goals for Toronto so far. And they've won on the road, and they've won at home. And,
but you have
they beat New England, tied Cincy, and beat Charlotte.
And they have not conceded a goal this year. And New York City has 1 goal in 3 games. So that's another thing to think about, playing their back 3. But when you say it seems like he's happier, that's really that's understated to the maximum. He sprinted to the sideline. How many players do this? Leapt into his coach's arm, his head coach's arm, and then you saw the picture you saw. Since we're not permitted to play this video on YouTube, that was still at the aftermath. They were still hugging and smiling, and I think that's and that's Herdman, man. Herdman is he's an interesting character, sometimes polarizing, but he's a motivator. I know people that have been coached by him. Karina LeBlanc in particular, who's now the GM at Portland, when he was the women's coach of the Canadian national team, and Karina was the goalkeeper, and she just sung his praises, lauded him for his organization and his meticulous detail, but also, and with the Canadians, it was about, oh, Canada. He got them, he the pride of that team in their country, and the country felt it, and a lot of that was Herdman, and it's, it's meaningful. So I wonder how much it'll keep carrying over through an entire season as a club coach. He's never been a club coach before. He's always been an international coach for New Zealand, Canada women, and then Canada men. So he's an interesting guy. You got him and Nick Cushing on both sides, who's prominently in their careers they were coaching women.
Absolutely. The thing is that before this season, the 2 words insignia and sprint were never associated previously.
Well, how about Bernadeschi? Did you see him? I didn't. He's actually tracking back, and you see him in the penalty area, his penalty area defending, and I don't know how often we saw that. What we remember about Bernadeschi is he took himself out at halftime of last year's game. That's what we heard. We heard that he didn't come out for the second half. We heard he said, "I'm not going in the second half." That poor interim coach. I mean, come on, man. So yeah, that's just nasty stuff. That's not a good guy. I don't care what he does this year. I don't care how nice he comes across. And I'm talking about Bernadeschi now. That's just a. If indeed that was the move, that tells you a lot about the guy. Really tells you a lot about the guy.
Yeah, that's not good. And and he's supposed to be a leader, right? I mean, he's the second highest paid player on the team, which is something that absolutely, for what we heard, has him very upset, because he wanted the same money as Insignia, but I mean, he didn't get it. So, but he signed on the dotted line. So, you got to deal with it, and you got to put out your best. He's still getting paid very handsomely, I believe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know how much I'm sure it's fine what he's getting paid. Handsomely, I think is a proper word. They'll play against a back 5 or a back 3. That's the way Toronto will set up. International duty. So this is interesting. So this will be a question for Nick Cushing next week. Micha Ilinic and Tavon Gray will be out for international duty at the same time. If you look at the depth chart, they're the only two fullbacks. There are only two right backs on the team. So that's coming up. Ilinic is playing for Slovenia, full team again. He's playing 2 friendlies, one against Portugal. How cool would it be if he gets to play against Portugal? And then Tavon Gray, it's Jamaica versus the U.S., so will Tavon be starting at the back for Jamaica against the U.S. men's national team? That's the Nations League semifinal.
He would be taking on Tim Weah, most likely, on that right side. Because you expect it to be a forward line of Weah, Balogun, and Pulisic.
Yeah, you would think, but there's
We
other
should
people
start kicking it around, actually.
Well, what else did I have here? Did I have anything else I wanted to say before? Oh, the other Maxi Morales, his name came up. We didn't talk about Maxi yet and his return,
No.
or did we? Okay.
No.
So NYCFC Digital, like the New York City FC Twitter page, the official club Twitter page, had a picture of Maxi, and then they had written soon and with a little arrow pointing towards Maxi. So I'm like, soon? All right. So I asked Nick at the end of the interview, I told him, Digital put out this soon thing, and he said he didn't give any timetable. He just said Maxi is working with a ball, but he's not doing a lot of with the ball, a lot of the cutting exercises yet. So that means he's there's a distance away for him. And Nick said the sooner the better, and that's partly because of his leadership. He wants him back. And he wants him back quickly, but they're not going to do that to him.
The original schedule was May, and for what I've heard, it may be, end of April. He may be ahead of schedule, so that's what we hope.
Yeah, and it'll end up being, the medical staff's going to decide this through all the mechanics and science and data that they get
Don't
from.
Rush him. If he's ready, he's ready. If he's not ready, I prefer for him to stay out an extra week than come back in a week early on that sort of injury.
Yeah, once those legs are balanced, we'll see Maxi again, and then sort out where he fits in. All right, let's kick it around. Well, Roberto, we have a champion that's close by on the women's side. They play at Red Bull Arena, but they are Gotham FC. And they're going to open up against the San Diego Wave, this NWSL Challenge Cup. It's the Shield winners versus the Cup winners. I believe that's how this matchup works out. And it'll be at Red Bull Arena Friday night, tomorrow night. And
cool.
when we spoke with Brad Sims last week and we played that interview, one of the things towards the latter part of the interview, talking about infrastructure, the academy, what kind of setup will eventually there be for, the first team, the academy, MLS Next Pro 2 team, who will open up who also open up this weekend, their season, NYCFC 2. And then next week is when they play that U.S. Open Cup match at FC Motown on Thursday. I think I'm going to go. I'm going to try to, Roberto.
But I'm going to try to go to that. Oh, no, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be in New York. My plans abruptly changed as of this week. So I'll be in Florida Tuesday, Wednesday, and coming back Thursday.
Okay. Well, anyway, we asked Brad. I hope you have a nice time. We asked Brad about a women's team. And the specific question is, would it be an existing franchise, an existing team, or would it be an expansion team? And there's no clear-cut answer on there, but it's also obvious that New York City has, along the way, made contact with Gotham. It's a little bit more complicated because they're an existing franchise and how that would work. I don't know if anything in regard to the fact they play Red Bull Arena. I don't think that should have play any part in it because there'll be a new stadium to play in 2027. But Gotham FC, I mean, they have that New York. Gotham means New York, right? It's not. It's
Gotham
not
City. Did you not read Batman? Seriously?
I just said. I said Gotham is New York, right? I said,
You shouldn't be asking. It's
Anyway.
basically it's a fictional New York because it's based on New York.
But their Twitter
DC,
is,
they don't talk about actual cities. See, let me give you a little comic book, little lesson here. In DC, they don't talk about real cities in the United States, as opposed to Marvel that absolutely did. So, when the Avengers first movie came out, it was based in New York City.
Okay.
And, Batman is based in Gotham City, which is, for most people, New York City as well.
So what they officially call themselves is NJ/NY Gotham FC. But you most often, people just say Gotham FC.
Yes, which is a great name.
And they are playing in New Jersey.
It should just be that. Actually, it should be Gotham SC, but that's beside the point.
They're playing in New Jersey, where the Jets play, the Giants play. Who else uses New York and plays in New Jersey?
Oh, no, they don't use New York, but the Devils play there.
Yeah,
they are the New Jersey Devils.
And World
the
Cup
Nets
final.
called themselves New Jersey when they were there.
World Cup final, baby. MetLife Stadium. I can't wait to see how many references to New York there are before they even mention the words East Rutherford.
Now, you do realize that the reason it is being held in East Rutherford isn't because it's really close to Newark, right? You get that, right? I mean, the reason it's here is because of New York.
I'm not an anti-New Yorker, Roberto.
I just want to make sure that you fully understand that, because I know you're very pro-New Jersey, which is fine.
But I'm not anti-New York. I am anti-New Yorkers who diss New Jersey without a full complement of information. Some of them haven't even ever visited. Come on across the river, man, and check it out. Are you kidding?
Everybody's visited New Jersey.
No, they have not. I've talked to
gas was cheaper. They went there for gas.
They refuse.
Used to be, anyway.
The stupid tax it's coming too. Anyway, all right. Here, U17 youth men's national team roster was announced, and there are 3 NYCFC players, New York City FC players. Andrew Baera, who's a homegrown from Connecticut. Jacob Arayave, another one from Passaic. There's a Jersey boy. And then we fill out with New York City with Jonathan Shore. So those 3 guys are representing the U17s, which is pretty cool for the club. And those 3 guys 2 in particular, Arayave and Shore, they showed very well in preseason. They were thrown in with the big boys. Jonathan is still kind of a slight midfielder. He's growing, but still in that slight range. And
on that note, I just wanted to say I still can't wait to see Malachi Jones.
Yeah, really.
I really want to see him. I'm hoping that New York City has something like a 2-0 lead with 10 minutes to go, and Nick gives him a run, and he does what he likes to do, which is like, I'm taking you on. Whoever you are, I'm taking you on. The kid seems fearless. Love it.
When we see his debut, and it's forthcoming, if he makes a mistake, I don't think it'll bother him, and he'll just do it again. Not make the mistake necessarily, but take that player on or try whatever failed at that moment. And that's what's really cool about this kid. He's got tools, and he's got pace. And I still think, and we see Bakrar. I can't tell you how many people texted me or made some kind of contact with me and said, man, I didn't know Bakrar was that fast. Now, I also explained to them that Zach McGraw might not win a 50-yard dash against like Joe Namath, the current Joe Namath. So you have to take it.
Even the old one.
You have to take it, in stride and kind of in perspective and using that. But Bakrar can run. I'm not saying he can't run, and he uses his body really well. Bakrar is he's got so many great striker tools, except he doesn't score goals. But will he?
Hopefully that's going to come. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why they got him here, so they can try to fix whatever that they saw. Oh, we can deal with this. Let's remember, he came the previous season before coming to New York, 8 goals in 38 games. So they feel that there's something that they can adjust. that is going to make him
It's called
a
development.
true, threat
It's
in the
called
box.
development. This guy's got to develop under the tutelage of this staff. He has to develop, and he has to start understanding how to. The one time he got in that bothered me the most as far as not beating Crépeau is Crépeau went down early, and he had a lot of time to see it, dribble in. It was at an angle on the left, and all he had to do was put it over the top of the keeper. And that's a striker instinct too, but I'm sure he'll see this. I want him to succeed so badly because I want to see the club score goals. I want them to start securing 3-point games and move their way in a forward fashion. And he's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy in the interactions that we've had with him. So, but the fact is he's not scoring, but he's not scoring goals. So
he's not, and
he's got to score goals.
Here's the thing between the great players and the good players and the not so good players. Okay, the better you are, the slower everything is in front of you, right? Everything seems to be in slow motion. You watch Messi play, and Messi is already figuring out like 4 steps ahead. He knows what everybody's going to do. He's operating at a different speed, and everybody else around him is much slower. That's the way it appears. That's the way he makes everybody look. And so that's what's going to have to happen with him. Things are going to have to slow down in front of him, and he's going to have to develop this. It's just not going to come just with experience. It's something that he's going to have to develop, and he's going to have to develop that with skill. He's going to have to develop that with vision, and he's got to be able to do that. Yeah. And if he does that, then he's going to become the guy who everybody hopes he becomes, that New York City really hopes he becomes, and the New York City fans hope he becomes.
Or Mijatovic, once he's fit, comes in and gets the job for a while to see if he can put it in the back of the net. That's the other option from all this. All right, so how about U.S. men's national team? You got anything you want to say about that, Roberto? That they got a big game coming up against Tavon Gray and the Nations League semifinal. That's March 21st. I think I've got that right. So
I mean, great to see Tyler Adams back. He was able to play against for Bournemouth the other day, and they came back from 3-0 down against Luton Town. They came back. They were down 3-0, and they came back and won that game.
I was watching. I watched that game actually from start to finish. It was really. That's quite a game. I don't think I've ever, you're involved in games sometimes that go like that, but not to that extent. 3-0 at the break. Oh,
they came all the way back. That was really an interesting thing. So the other interesting thing that I saw was that Gio Reyna is on the team, which we sort of expected. Problem is that Gio Reyna, ever since he's gone to Nottingham Forest, his playing time seems to be diminishing. And as a matter of fact, in the last 2 games, and I believe they were both EPL games, he didn't even make the bench. And that's troubling. That is really troubling, because the reason he went from Borussia Dortmund to Nottingham Forest was because it wasn't getting enough playing time there, right? And he wasn't happy with his playing time. Now he comes to the EPL, and everybody's thinking, well, he's going to be able to play, he's going to do this, and here we go again, and he's not playing.
Maybe it's time.
You have to just wonder why.
Maybe it's time for him to make the move to the Charleston Battery. Get some PT there in the USL Championship. I don't know. I'm teasing, but no. There must be something consistent. We know injuries have foiled him at times. Especially at Dortmund. But when he was healthy at Dortmund, at times he wasn't utilized. He had moments where he was coming in a reserve role and scoring goals late. But yeah, one day if the story gets told, it'll be so interesting to know, because we already know that Gio Reyna had a problem attitudinally on a very, very big stage in a very, very big moment with the team you want to be a part of, the U.S. men's national team. So I'm not suggesting at all that those are the issues with any of these other teams. I see some of his former academy teammates, New York City. They just say he's just a wonderful, wonderful person. I trust in that. But, wonderful person versus when you get into that arena and you're competing for things, sometimes you change. It's like parents. Parents are, they could be the most normal individuals, kind, and then all of a sudden they're watching their kid play or not play, and they freaking go bonkers, and they become insane. Those are temporary insanity moments, parents watching their kids.
Yeah, but that should happen. I mean, it shouldn't happen, but that should happen. If it's going to happen, it's got to happen at the U8 to U15 level, right? When you're playing in Marlborough, New Jersey, or wherever else. It should not happen in Qatar, in the World Cup. I mean, you're the coach. Yeah. You tell everybody this is what your role is going to be on the team. We're happy that you're on the team, and maybe this isn't what you want to see, but this is it, and you accept your role and you do the best because you're part of a team. And yes, you get over the initial disappointment. And how do you change the coach's mind? Because he puts you on the field for the last 20 minutes of the first game, and you go and you kick butt, and you make it impossible for him to leave you off the team. That's where you do it. You don't go and cry and sulk and make a scene, okay? To me, watching the U.S. national team and seeing it wasn't as much about how he played, which I don't think he played greatly, okay, when he was there. When the U.S. won that game, which one was it? Was it the Iraq game or Iran? I forget. And, the team came and comes back to the hotel, and everybody is partying, celebrating.
That's Iran. That was the Iran game.
Yeah, the Iran game. And then you see Gio Reyna with his headphones on and just walking through like nothing, like he wasn't part of it at all. I mean, that's a terrible disconnect. And I know he's young, and I hope he learns. I hope it's not one of those things that he's going to be like this forever. You hope that that's a learning moment, that you can't do that. And you got to get over your initial disappointment. You're part of a team, and you have to be somebody who is giving the team something positive, even if it's not when you're playing. Okay, if you're not playing, you got to be the biggest cheerleader on the bench, right? That's what you got to do.
Well, here, if I could, I want to tell you a quick Carly Lloyd story regarding the U.S. women's national team. In 2012 at the Olympics, Pia Sundhage was the coach, and she told Carly, "You're not starting." Shannon Bach started the first game. And Carly was upset, but she doesn't say things about the coach publicly, especially not until years later, maybe, which she suggests that she got a raw deal. But what she did was Shannon Bach got injured midway through the first half of that first game. Carly went on, scored 3 goals, including the game winner against Brazil in the final, and it was a gold medal for the U.S., and Carly was one of the top players at the event. At the beginning of it, she wasn't playing. And maybe she would have played along the way. Who knows how much? But her role was a reserve at the start of that. And that really began her legacy. From that point on, she was pretty much always in the lineup until she got older, and then was a reserve at the end of her career. And which she still didn't agree with, but
I'm sure she didn't. But look at this. Look at something even more recent. Alex Morgan. Okay, Alex Morgan was not selected for the Gold Cup. She was left off the team, and then there was an injury, and then she came onto the team, and then all of a sudden she's playing really, really important minutes. You understand the importance of an Alex Morgan. And, she came in with the best attitude. She didn't have her number 13. They gave her number 7. And it was like, okay, this is what I got to wear because that's what the rules of the tournament were. Fine. And then she went out and she killed it. And that's what you want.
Yep.
That's what you want. That's how you get over your disappointment. You go and you show what you can do. You make them understand that maybe they made a mistake. And I have a lot of respect for that.
No, well put, man. Well put. Also with the U.S. men's national, a couple other things. You mentioned Tyler Adams. So his inclusion, I thought this was interesting. Andoni Iraola is his club coach now, the former New York City midfielder.
Yes.
He's the club coach at Bournemouth. And he and Greg Berhalter have been in conversation in recent weeks, which is, this is the way you do it, and there was an honest evaluation. And Iraola told Greg Berhalter basically to take him, or he said to Berhalter, I think he'll be able to play 45 minutes for you. This is Greg Berhalter revealed this yesterday in the pre-match presser. So Berhalter selected Adams because Iraola, who's going to, maybe lose him for a time, told Berhalter, yeah, he can go 45 minutes. How cool is that, number one, that the club coach is being honest about it? But that also he told him, and he's probably going to play today, which he did. That was yesterday in that incredible, he was on the field so he entered when it was 3-3, and then they scored the game-winning goal, and he was part of that. He was on the field for him, and it's like, unbelievable, just an unbelievable game. But that communication I thought was pretty darn cool between Iraola, who, that's the kind of guy you think of him as, and that's who he truly is. And that's one of the reasons he's gaining more and more respect as a coach.
And that's what you want, right? That's exactly what you want. And it benefits both because he'll get some playing time, right, for the U.S. national team. He'll get back into that program. And then, hopefully if he comes out unscathed, as you hope everybody comes out unscathed, he's going to be a better player for Bournemouth going forward, and he'll be adding more and more minutes. So we'll see. I don't think he's going to start. I would think that he would come in somewhere in the second half, depending on what the score is, somewhere above the 60th minute, and, help maybe if the U.S. is ahead, help close the game down.
Yeah. If he can only go 45, he's not going to start the match. That's for sure. The other thing about the roster, Roberto, that was announced yesterday by Berhalter, is that there are 3 number 9s on the roster, but that doesn't include Haji, who is lighting it up among all the strikers, American strikers that are playing overseas. He's the leading goal scorer. No Vasquez, who down south.
Haji Wright.
Haji Wright.
Yeah.
What did I say? Haji Wright.
You just said Haji, so I just want to make sure.
Say Haji Wright. No Brandon Vasquez, who's tearing it up.
Lighting it up for Monterrey, by the way.
And no Jordan Pifak, who Berhalter pointed out is scoring. He's doing well. So, but Josh Sargent, there was no way you could leave Josh Sargent out because he's got some incredible goal scoring streak going. And you might as well see if you can ride that into this semifinal.
Right. And also it's good to see Malik Tillman from PSV, Serginho Dest for PSV, who are entrenched starters over there. And then Ricardo Pepi, also, who's like the super sub coming off the bench for PSV. And he scored some important goals for that team in Champions League and every place else.
Can I ask you something?
Now, last night there was an interesting thing.
But let me ask you something before you go on, because earlier you said you gave a starting, what the front 3 was going to look like for the U.S. men. Why wouldn't you start Josh Sargent? I'm curious why you wouldn't start Josh. You might.
Well, but because Balogun has basically been the entrenched starter. But I haven't looked lately to see how he's doing. And, you can understand that Sargent, may come in and be the starter there. I mean, that's why they selected him. But the interesting that I was going to talk about last night, I was watching America Guadalajara, and which is Champions Cup, and it was a lot of fun. It was a crazy game. America was up 3-0 after the first leg. Chivas came into Azteca, and they just lit it up early. And Cade Cowell was key in all of this. So Chivas gets on the board first, and Cade Cowell with a great header puts them up 1-0, and then once they were up 2-0, then America, reacted at the beginning of the second half. There was a bad own goal by Alan Mosso. And then the guy who winds up tying up the game is Alex Sendejas. So you have 2 Americans there, both scoring in the classic, the classic game, right? The real rivalry in Mexico, which is America Guadalajara. And then you have a third kid there, Sepulveda, who also plays for Chivas, who's also an American. So there are 3 Americans in this game, but 2 of them scored. And Alex Sendejas, after a little bit of a rough start to the season for America, has really played very, very well for the last few games. So there's a lot of competition for spots. And, these guys, between Vasquez, who plays tonight for Monterrey against Cincinnati, and he scored for Monterrey in Cincinnati, right? So he's going
Yeah,
tonight,
how about that
and he
moment?
wants he's a different sort of striker than the other guys that they have. So, you like to see the competition, and hopefully they all get a chance to come into camp to show what they can do, and to try to win a permanent spot on the team. And but
It's
I
pretty
like
amazing.
Sendejas, and I'm glad that he's playing well, and I like Vasquez, and you hope that they do well. Cowell's so young. I mean, he's like what, 2021, and I mean he's got tools. He's also strong as hell. He's fast as hell. He did run out of steam at the end of the game, so that was like the only thing. Probably should have been replaced like around 75 minutes in, because he was toast.
Not too long ago, Roberto, remember it was like this the paucity of strikers. We had no strikers. Seriously. It wasn't that long ago we were like,
Yeah.
who's gonna, because Sargent was either injured or slumping, Jesus.
Everybody else was up and down. Nobody was consistent.
No, you're perfect way of looking at it. And now it's like all these guys they're all scoring. They're all scoring goals now on a consistent basis. That CONCACAF Champions Cup. So 3 MLS teams are out. Well, one of them had to leave last night. Inter Miami played Nashville, so Inter Miami got past Nashville.
Philly got smoked. It was horrible to watch that game.
Yeah. And Orlando City.
I mean, that was just horrific. And then Orlando didn't do much better. It was a lot closer, but still played
so now
terribly against Tigres.
And of course, this ignites the Liga MX versus MLS discussion.
It's not a fair competition right now. And let's talk about this for a second, because although MLS has gotten a little bit closer and things have gotten better, and they have a puncher's chance in every one of these tournaments, right? They have a puncher's chance that they have a good day, that their goalie, stands on his head, that they are as effective as Portland has been at the beginning of the season, and they can go and steal games, right? That's what they've got. They've got a puncher's chance, but they can't compete. If these were all 7-game series, like you have in the NBA, the NHL, and in baseball, right? There's no chance they'd ever win, right? Against the best teams in Mexico, against America, against Tigres, against Monterrey, against Cruz Azul, against Pumas. Those teams, for the most part, spend a hell of a lot more money on talent than any of the Americans are allowed to, or Canadians in this case, are allowed to, because of the salary cap. And we've complained about this. And you have a lot of owners within the league who like to make money, and, they're competing. They don't care about the international competition. They care about, selling tickets for home games, during the 17, home games that they've got. But the real way to measure where these teams are is in the Champions Cup and not in Leagues Cup, because it's all played here. So that's not fair to the Mexican teams. And so this is where you get to see it. And it was horrible to watch what Philly did against Pachuca. And by the way, Pachuca has actually a smaller salary. They have a lower salary than Philadelphia did. And they play a lot of young kids. They have a lot of kids that are coming up from their academies. And they just smoked them. After that game was 2-0, and then it was like 3 at the beginning, and then they were gone.
But the other thing that one of the athletic boys, and I can't remember which one, I think it was Tenorio, and I believe I have this right, is that the discussion of an adjustment to the budget in MLS is that you can have, and this is according to the report, you can have 3 U22 initiative players, and you can use you have these max DPs, these senior max DPs that count $680,000 against the budget. But if you use 3 U22s, you're not allowed to use all 3 DPs at the highest level. It's got to be a young DP right now. I'm saying now. So the adjustment, according to this report from The Athletic, is that even if you have 3 U22s, you're going to be able to have 3 DPs. And then the kicker was, so Inter Miami will have room for 1 more DP. One more DP.
Well, that would be good. By the way, it was Tom Bogert who did that report. I didn't know which way you were going, but it was Tom Bogert.
Okay. Thanks, Tommy Bogert, for another one. Well, Roberto, I want to close with it. Now, look, this might be a far out reference to what it takes to be able to handle adversity or a mistake. And it comes from Miles Davis. I get these quotes. I get this like inbox every day. I get a quote, from somebody. And most of them I look at and come on, it doesn't impact me. But this one was good. First of all, I'm a Miles Davis fan, jazz trumpeter. And if you don't know Miles Davis, you got to look him up. He's one of the.
You better know Miles
greats.
Davis, please.
So Shane, put this up, please, so we can see it. So this was the quote: "Do not fear mistakes. There are none." Now that might be taking it to a level. Of course, there are mistakes, but the point here, and Herbie Hancock is involved, and Herbie Hancock, another great jazzman, just a keyboardist out the wazoo. And so he was, and what it says in here is during a performance in the 60s in Stuttgart, and Hancock was playing in this quintet with Miles Davis, he played a very pronounced wrong chord, covered his ears, and feared he had reduced that great night to rubble. Well, Miles Davis, who's this improvisational jazz trumpeter, responded with a series of notes that made Hancock's chord sound intentional. He did what any jazz musician should always try to do, and that is to make anything that happens into something of value. And I think that's noteworthy on the sporting side of things. You could get rid of that now, Shane. Isn't that interesting, though? Right?
It's great. I had actually seen that a while ago.
If it's not going well, and this is the second half, if it's not going well, come up with ways to figure it out and figure it out on your own. Miles Davis did it by improvising on a trumpet in a split second in a jazz set when Herbie Hancock was about ready to, shrink under the piano. He covered for it. He made it sound good. So grind it out, whatever you got to do. But Saturday, New York City, 3 points on the table for you against Toronto FC.
Absolutely. By the way, one of my favorite bands, and they were totally improvisational, was War. And they would go off on time. They'd go off on, they'd play a song, and then they would just be jamming for 20 minutes. And it wasn't anything that they had rehearsed. It was just sort of like, all right, I'll follow you. All right, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. And they kept on going. What an amazing band that was. Loved them.
The number of incredible musicians out there, no matter the genre, that actually can't read music, but they know chords, and they have these incredible ears, like perfect pitch, and they just can play within the chord. I mean, many great ones can read music and can play it, and to compose songs, generally, you have to be able to, write them out for, your band or whoever might be performing it with you. But music has an influence like sports, and I know it's the same with you, Roberto. Those two things have had the most influence in my life, and it's along with my family. And it's just, I thought I'd leave with that because when I saw it, I was like, oh man, I'm sharing this tonight.
Good for you.
All right.
We got to go. I got to go. You can stay and talk if you want. I've got to go. I have no,
I'm not staying.
There's no room for me anymore.
That's Roberto Abramowitz. I'm Glenn Crooks. 7:15 Eastern airtime for our pregame show as New York City plays host to Toronto at Yankee Stadium. This has been a live NYCFC Views.
No more geofence.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.